In the last video, we talked a lot about the Columbian Exchange and what were some of the effects. Again, we reviewed the reasons why Europeans began to explore. And then we really looked at the effects, and one of the main things that really has come out of this introduction of Europe to the Americas and Americas to Europe was the Columbian Exchange. And we really saw that if you were kind of taking balance, the Native Americans in the Americas kind of lost a bit on the Columbian Exchange, that the Europeans gained more. And so now we kind of talked about the whole idea of explorers from different countries, and America as a continent is now known and being explored, and now these countries want to settle so they can keep that land that they've claimed as theirs. And we're going to look at specifically our home state, North Carolina, and the country that began to really want to settle and claim was England. And England really was the first country. We had some Spanish explorers go through North Carolina, but they weren't set on settlement. They were set on gathering information and seeing what's there. The English really were very intentional in wanting to establish a colony here, and that is what we're going to look at today. So, the English attempt, that is Sir Walter Raleigh, and it was his mission to discover and inhabit strange lands. And he got permission from the Queen to put together an expedition to go create a settlement. Here's your vocabulary: colony, lost colony, Amadison Barlow, Lane White, Virginia Dare. The colonies, one of the motivations was to have a colony is they could really provide wealth. They could strengthen England to become a world power. If they could have land here, then you could settle it, use the resources, gain more money, gain more status, gain more power. So there was all this competition between these European monarchs about making it count. And so the Queen, she designated Sir Walter Raleigh. She gave him what they call a patent, or permission, it's a legal document, to colonize the New World. And he had gotten this from his half-brother, who the Queen originally gave it to, but he died. And so, Sir Walter Raleigh sends two men. And he was smart about this. He said, you know, we don't know what's there. If we're going to plan and strategize and figure out how to create a colony, we need to know what we're dealing with. So he sent two men who were in charge of this first expedition, Philip Amadis and Arthur Barlow, to explore the New World. The expedition landed near the present-day Nag's Head in July. So up here is Kitty Hawk, Albemarle, and down here at Nag's Head is where they originally stopped. 3 days after landing, they were visited by the Roanoke Indians, the Roanoke Native Americans. The Indians took the English to Roanoke Island. The land was fertile and abundant with game and fish. So you have to understand, the English are here, they meet these Native Americans, the Roanoke Indians, and they're treated well. And they are just amazed at what they see here compared to England, a very different environment. And they're like, oh, this is a great place. This is a perfect place to establish a colony. So they are gathering information, they're gathering samples of plant life and other things, and two of the Native Americans decide that are willing to go back with Amadis and Barlow to England to really introduce Native Americans to the Queen. So their names were Manteo and Wanchese, and they went back with Amadis and Barlow to England and met the Queen. And they were quite a sensation when they got there. And you need to understand that these Native Americans They had never seen cobblestone streets or brick buildings or a city like London that had factories and all these things. They had never seen that. So this is a huge cultural jump for them. The next year, the first English colony attempt landed at what is now at Ocracoke Island. And the leader was Ralph Lane. And the sea captain, Sir Richard Grenville. Now, understand that this is 1585. Columbus discovered America in 1492. So we are getting close to 100 years since the first discovery of America. And what has happened, Spain conquered most of the land in where modern-day Mexico, southwestern United States, and in South America. And Spain, they found tons and tons of gold from the Incas and the Aztecs and within that region. Well, people in England are hearing about Spain's becoming rich, 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 and there was a real motivation, well, let's get there and get some of that gold. Let's get what Spain got. Let's, you know, the party's going on and we're left out. And so Ralph Lane and Grenville come. Raleigh charges them to run the expedition, and all single men, it was just single men, came with them. And they developed a fort known as Fort Raleigh. So, the Lane colony first attempted colonization. They returned with Juan Cheese and Manteo and 107 Englishmen, men alone. Thomas Harriot and John White brought scientific info back to England, and the colony was located on the northeast end of Roanoke Island. So they were there. White and Harriot did a lot of scientific exploring. They took back samples, they made maps. They really were going to map it and document it. And you have these 107 Englishmen whose job it was to start building a fort, start building housing, to create the beginnings of a colony. Well, there was a problem. These 107 men were mostly wealthy men. You didn't have your average person who had the ability to go on these kind of voyages. The same way with now space exploration is the big thing. And you have that Englishman, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, who is developing space travel, and in 20 years people are already putting down money to be able to take a ride to the moon. And so it is people of significant means or money that can do that. And the same thing is excuse me, is here with these wealthy men. And these guys haven't done manual labor. They had servants do this kind of stuff, so they were. So, and these men heard about all the gold Spain had, and they thought, hey, let's get in on it. And they were much more interested in getting up every day, searching and digging and trying to find gold, than they cared about building a home, which they didn't have the skills to do anyway, or planting crops, or hunting for food. And so this was fine when they first got there in July, but as winter came and their supplies began to run down, they didn't know how they were going to survive from winter. And so because they were ethnocentric, or they thought that their ethnicity, their European background made them better than the Native Americans because of their technology, they went to the Native Americans, they attacked them, they grabbed their food, and there was, instead of cooperating, being smart and saying, these people know how to live here, why don't we kind of woo them and get them to teach us, they really thought they were much better than they were, so they attacked. And then of course the Native Americans were like, this is our land, we don't think so, and you can starve. So there was a lot of fighting. And it especially erupted when a silver cup that these wealthy men, who needs a silver cup when you're camping, if any of you have ever gone camping? No, you don't bring expensive good things like that. So, but these guys were used to this, so they brought their silver cup, and shortly after arriving, the silver cup disappeared. Well, they were sure, we know who took it, we know who the criminals are, and so instead of investigating, finding things out, researching it, they jumped to a conclusion. They immediately assumed they knew. Grenville leaves the colony and blames some local Indians for coming in and stealing this, and they demanded that these guys return the cup. Now, who knows what evidence there was for this accusation. When no cup was produced, Grenville said, well, these Native Americans aren't getting one over on us, and they marched in there and they burned their village down. Now, in his jump to a conclusion, how do you think the Native Americans felt towards these potential colonists now? They weren't feeling the love. So his actions really shot himself in the foot. So Grenville leaves with the ships to return to England for supplies, and Lane took command of the colony, and he split them into 3 groups. So Grenville, they know they're not going to make it, so they get in the ships and he leaves. And Lane says, we're going to send one group up this way to explore Chesapeake, one group to remain on Roanoke, and one group to explore Albemarle Sound. So these different areas. Here's Albemarle Sound as we know it today. Here is Chesapeake, and Roanoke Island is over there. All right, so Sir Francis Drake. We will be talking about him in the next video.